Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating and honestly pretty unsettling anomaly that's unfolding right now at a historic 10th century site in Maharashtra. It's a story that starts with a tragedy, for sure, but it quickly morphs into this profound look at human psychology and modern obsession. We're going to unpack exactly how and why a localized crime scene suddenly rewrote the map for hundreds of everyday travelers.
So let's jump right into the numbers. Lohagad Fort, which is situated about 50 kilometers from Pune, has recently experienced this massive, sudden 50% leap in visitors. Now you might be thinking, okay, so what? But a spike this massive for an ancient heritage site? That just doesn't happen in a vacuum. Normally, a location like this might see a tiny single-digit growth year over year, or maybe a quick bump during a major festival. But an immediate 50% increase? That tells us a powerful, totally unexpected new catalyst has been introduced, completely shifting consumer behavior literally overnight.
And this surge is dramatic across the board. The data shows holiday footfall jumping from around 1,000 visitors to nearly 1,500. And even on your standard, run-of-the-mill weekdays, attendance has bumped up from 400 to over 600 people. So this isn't just a quick seasonal bump. We're talking about a sustained influx of people completely altering their routines to travel to this exact spot. I mean, consider what it takes to organize a trip like that. You've got to plan the route, take time off work, and travel 50 kilometers out of the city. For hundreds of extra people to suddenly do this every single week, the draw has to be incredibly potent.
Section 1. A sudden tourist surge. Traditionally, Lohagad Fort is celebrated as this beautiful heritage and trekking destination. It's an ancient hill fort associated with Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, and it's revered for its natural beauty and centuries of historical significance. But recently, a specific cliff area at the fort has taken on a macabre new identity, an alleged crime scene. It's even being informally dubbed Sia Point by visitors and folks on social media. Think about how powerful that cultural shift really is. The location's rich, centuries-old history has essentially been overwritten in the public consciousness in a matter of weeks, all by modern true crime fascination.
Moving on to Section 2, the tragic crime. To really understand this shift in visitor behavior, we have to look at what catalyzed the whole thing. According to police reports, a tragedy unfolded on June 18th. A Pune-based realtor named Ketan Agarwal was allegedly pushed into a 400-foot gorge right at the fort. Practically overnight, this isolated, really scenic cliff became the epicenter of a major criminal investigation. It's a sobering reality to wrap your head around, right? A beautiful vantage point meant for just taking in nature suddenly transformed into a site of profound loss. The sequence of events builds a pretty grim picture. It starts with a troubled engagement, which ultimately leads up to that fatal incident on June 18th at the gorge. The investigation actually escalated so rapidly that authorities had to close the fort entirely on a Tuesday. They needed to disrupt the normal, day-to-day operations of this heavily visited historical site just so police could safely and accurately recreate the crime scene. I mean, closing a major heritage site, that is a massive logistical move, and it really reflects just how complex and serious this investigation had become.
Now, the motive presented by investigators is deeply unsettling in its alleged calculation. Police claim this alleged murder was actually pre-planned by Agarwal's fiancée, Saya Goyal, and her alleged lover, Chetan Chowdhury. The authorities report that Goyal allegedly chose this isolated cliff because she didn't want to marry Agarwal, but reportedly feared the social consequences of officially calling off the marriage. It really highlights a tragic extreme where, according to the investigation, the fear of societal judgment allegedly drove individuals toward an unthinkable act of violence instead of just, ending the relationship.
Section 3. Tracking the suspects.
You know how criminal investigations often hinge on something that just visually contradicts the environment? Well, in this case, the police investigation gained crucial momentum when CCTV footage captured a highly suspicious individual. And why did this person stand out so much? Because the footage reportedly showed a man wearing a winter hoodie and a headset right in the middle of incredibly hot weather. Talk about sticking out like a sore thumb. This jarring detail, an absolute mismatch with the climate, really helped unravel the alleged conspiracy. It's a fascinating reminder of how a single, out-of-place human error can completely expose a carefully premeditated event.
Which brings us to Section 4, the rise of dark tourism.
This whole situation brings up a much broader behavioral question, and it's answered by the sociological concept of dark tourism. Basically, this is the practice of visiting places associated with death, tragedy, suffering, or disasters.
People are drawn to these sites to learn, to pay their respects, or sometimes simply to reflect on human experiences, rather than going for traditional leisure or entertainment. It's a very well-documented phenomenon where human curiosity intersects directly with tragedy. From historical battlefields to modern disaster zones, humanity has always felt this complex pull toward the sites of our darkest moments.
And at Lohagad Fort, this phenomenon is actively manifesting right now as we speak. It is not just a passive increase in attendance numbers. Guides on the ground are reporting that tourists are arriving and specifically asking to be shown the exact cliff associated with the case, that area informally dubbed Sila Point. Think about how wild that is. The primary focus of the visit has entirely shifted from centuries of noble history to modern true crime, fueled almost entirely by extensive media coverage and word-of-mouth intrigue.
To really understand the reality on the ground, just listen to what one tourist at the fort explicitly stated. They said, "Actually, we had planned to go trekking at Visapur Fort, but this tragic incident involving Ketan Agarwal has been making news across Maharashtra. So we wanted to see what actually happened and where it happened. We were curious and wanted to see the actual spot where he was murdered." This perfectly illustrates how real people are literally diverting their recreational plans, canceling a trek to a neighboring fort entirely, just to satisfy their curiosity about a newly reported crime scene.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We've seen the data, we've walked through the timeline, and we've examined the behavioral shift. But when it comes to human tragedy, where exactly is the line drawn between natural, historical curiosity and inappropriate spectacle? How soon does a modern tragedy become a historical attraction? It's a complex question about human nature for sure, and one that the Lohagad Fort anomaly brings sharply into focus. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I highly encourage you to think about how media and our own curiosity shape the very geography around us.